So hello everyone and welcome to the cert-manager bi-weekly meeting, the first one of 2025. It's the 9th of January. Not loads on the agenda, and as often seems to happen when I chair one of these, I will end up talking for a little bit before we get to anything more interesting. But I won't speak for too long. I'll jump into that stuff so we can get it out of the way quickly. The first is in the announcements and shout-outs section. There's not really much to announce, given that it's been sort of the holiday period and Christmas and New Year has kind of got in the way. That said, Cert Manager 117 is on track, which I'd like to say. We are aiming to release at the beginning of February as scheduled, and where that seems doable. I've been assigned internally within CyberArk to sort of focus on that over the next few weeks, once I've got some other stuff out of the way. So I'm hoping I'll spend a bunch of time on that and make good progress there. So consider that announced. I've been reviewing some PRs today to that end, and more will continue. Next week, I would expect releases of Trust Manager and Istio CSR to go out. They're pretty much good to go, and a properly approval policy as well, and some patch releases of Cert Manager. That might come a bit earlier if we can make it, but I would expect those next week, along with probably an alpha release of Cert Manager 117. Um, on the assumption that no one else has any announcements or shout outs, I'll move on to the agenda, which the first thing of which is me. I just wanted to quickly recap what happened in the Cert Manager steering committee yesterday. I organised that meeting just because it felt like it had been too long since we had one of those meetings, and the makeup of the steering committee has changed since then as well. The whole steering committee was there, which was great. We had uh, a meeting where I pretty much just sat and talked to people for quite a long time, and I can only apologise to those that were there for that. But there was a few useful things there. First was that we're going to add a new. The steering committee agreed on adding a new item to the Cert Manager roadmap, which is to officially say that we're going to support post-quantum cryptography in Cert Manager. I'm writing up the change for that now, and then the lazy consensus period will start. That doesn't mean that we'll be doing it anytime soon. It has quite a few dependencies on Go to make changes, and so it'll be a while yet, but the idea is there at least. The second thing was to announce that Venafi don't intend to sponsor another long-term support version of Cert Manager to the steering committee, which they all were fine with and understood. For context, Venafi sponsored the 112 long-term support sort of out of the goodness of their hearts, if you like. They don't intend to do the same again. I think there will be a commercial offering on that, but the open source, there won't be, no free version at least, unless someone else steps up to do it. The intention there is that we will provide though a good migration path. So I think as with my open source hat on, the intention is that we will have a good test that checks the upgrade from 112 to 116 or 117 so that people have a clear upgrade path from long-term support to a newer version for those that are sort of been stuck on the 112 for a while now. Finally, we talked about the intention to stop publishing Cert Manager OLM bundles, which, if you're not familiar, is an OpenShift thing. I'm not that familiar with it. OLM bundles, they seem to take a hell of a lot of time to do. Specifically within Cert Manager, basically it's just Richard, who is another maintainer who does them, and it takes a lot of his time and it relies on him quite heavily. We're not sure that we're seeing the return on investment for that. There was Trilok from Red Hat who was in the meeting, who is interested in looking at the numbers of the OLM bundle if we're able to find them out or do anything with those. The aim there being that maybe Red Hat might want to do it. He did mention that Red Hat have been talking to the external secrets operator people who have going down a similar path of deprecating the OLM bundle. So maybe it will get handed over to Red Hat, but certainly it won't keep on getting done by the Cert Manager maintainer team as it currently stands, because we just don't have the bandwidth and we don't see the return on investment on that. if you can see a return on investment on an open source project. I suppose that's more a philosophical question. In any case, everything that we discussed was smooth. It was nice to talk to everyone. We had some good chats after the recording was finished as well. I will get around to summarizing what I've just said in note form and putting it in the usual places and linking to the video. I just haven't done that yet. That's the update. That's enough of me. Let's pass over to Brian, who's joined. Is this your first time joining, Brian?
It is.
Well, welcome. Great to have you here. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, thanks. From Colorado Springs in the United States.
Beautiful. Um, Great to
Are,
have you
are
here.
you are you painting or something? My daughter, who is just there, noticed
Oh,
something
my
in the
wife.
background.
Yeah, my wife is a painter. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm not skilled in that way. She is.
Yeah,
Um,
office and studio.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Important question from me. Are you a Rockies fan?
I'm not much in baseball. So I'm from Kansas City originally, so I'd have to say Royals, but
Fair
Rockies is
enough.
home team these days. Uh, Much more in, American football fan. So
Oh, fair enough.
Being from Kansas City, Chiefs are my team.
Well, go Bills is all I can say to that.
They're a good team. They're I think they might be the best team right now.
Oh,
Um,
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a nail biter this weekend.
yeah.
Let's talk cert-manager though.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, so one of the things that so I work at Lambda Labs and on our platform team, and one of the things that we're doing is standing up Kubernetes, kind of as a platform for our engineers to be able to go, build and deploy, applications and all that. Uh, and one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure we have good monitoring on our infrastructure components. And one of those infrastructure components is cert-manager. And so being able to alert on, are your certificates going to expire soon? Are they bad? Or do you have problems um, with your issuers? Do you have, and we're also asking this question from lots of other tools, like you mentioned external secrets operator earlier. Are your secrets not syncing? All that sort of thing. So, um, as part of that, we noticed that the issuer and cluster issuer statuses were not being exposed by the cert-manager metrics endpoint, whereas other resources like certificate statuses are being um, exposed through that metrics endpoint. So yeah, there were some issues that I had seen on GitHub related to this, related to other people asking for it, and Erik was kind enough to kind of point me to some workarounds kind of in the interim, um, and wanted to bring it here to this conversation to ask how we wanted to do metrics for issuers and cluster issuers, whether we wanted to kind of bring those in band into cert-manager itself, just like the certificate status metrics are, or whether we wanted to recommend using the cube state metrics, custom state metrics to expose those. So I don't know if are all of those words that people have heard and are familiar with, or should I pause and kind of go into some details on those?
I think it's enough, at least for me.
Hmm.
I remember your thread from before Christmas, so
I know it's been a long time since then. Yeah.
I would
Um,
I have things to say about this, but I would like to hear the opinions from the more experienced cert manager maintainers because I mean I'm working with other stuff and have some opinions related, but I would like to hear from Ashley and maybe Mael. Um,
I'm not convinced you'd like to hear from me. I'll hold my hands up. Like, this isn't really my thing. Like I come at cert manager from a very TLS perspective, which isn't to say that I don't like the Kubernetes bit, but it's not my past area of expertise. So I I'm more interested in hearing what Eric's got to say than me talking, to be honest.
I think it's the same thing for me. I have worked with this. Remember, Erik, approved policy. We worked a bit. Like I had to add metrics around the. I think
Yeah.
it was for CRs, certificate requests, not issuers, and in the end, I think the cube state metrics project is a good approach.
Yeah.
But Erik, please talk.
I can talk a bit. It's my feelings around this are mixed because on one side I see the benefit of having metrics from cert-manager itself because it's more convenient, it's less for users to configure and stuff. But at the same side, I feel like the metrics area is a bit like the Helm charts. Every user has its own need on how to kind of look at what kind of metrics is important for a user. The same way a Helm chart usually gets bloated because everyone has a special requirement for something special in their environment. But I really see the benefit of adding metrics in tree, at least if we have good and well-defined metrics for certificates, for instance, which are based on, are they based on API, the API resources, or are they based more on the runtime state?
Well, so I mean, as far as like where those come in, whenever certificates are updated, like with their status, expiration, all that, like as part of the reconcile loop there in the controller, it is going through and updating those metrics and just holding those as gauges on the cert-manager on the controller itself. And so,
Yeah,
you know, whether it's, I don't know if that answers your question. I think
it does.
I think
It
it's kind
does,
of the
but
same. Yeah, it is from the API, but it is also from the executable.
yeah, because I think when the metrics that Mael was talking about in approval policy, they were implemented using a collector. Am I correct, Mael? Did we end up with a collector?
Yeah, maybe.
I think so. There's a difference. You could either have a kind of a metric which is maintained inside the Prometheus registry, or you can have a metrics which is produced whenever some application is scraping the metrics endpoint. So what I've been doing in other operators is using a collector for collecting information from the API to produce metrics. So you don't have to maintain kind of the
Oh, I
state in
see.
the internal Prometheus registry.
Sure. Yeah, I see. So somebody actually shared a link where that was there was a collector there where
Yeah,
it's just grabbed kind of on demand with metrics there.
yeah. It works pretty nicely in a kind of in a controller because a controller usually uses controller runtime or at least a cache. So it's very lightweight. You don't hit the API server for producing this metric. So even if it can look a bit overwhelming, it's usually not a big thing. So if you consider that way of implementing it, it's kind of implementation wise superior to the cube state metrics, which will have to, of course, query the API server for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, specifically for these resources, you know, I would expect that they would tend not to be so numerous. You know, the issuers themselves and the cluster issuers. But yes, from the controller standpoint, you know, if it's hitting those if it's updating the statuses, and so it would be the one who would have the context of holding that in a cache and saying, yes, this is the true false value for that, because it just would have hit it just when it started. So
Another perspective here is what kind of tools do you use to provision your issuers and cluster issuers? Because we use Flux CD in our clusters,
Mhm.
and it has a built-in health check, which kind of understands whether the cluster issuer or issuer is actually healthy by looking at the conditions.
Right.
It's using it's not a formal specification, but it's an initiative from Kubernetes called K-status to do that. And I think Argo CD does the same.
That's what we use, yes.
Yeah. So that's why I'm also a bit reluctant to kind of produce metrics from conditions which are usually monitored by the tool that provisions your resources to. So those tools can normally indicate whether a thing is healthy or not, or ready or not. I mean, if there's not anything more we would like to get out from the issuer or cluster issuer metrics, I think it could be justified to say that use your tools that you use to provision your issuers and cluster issuers to monitor the readiness state of your resource. It's another way of looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I was saying I have mixed feelings about this.
Sure, yeah.
I understand the need, but still it will be one more thing to maintain in cert-manager, and we will have bugs, fixed bugs, maybe some feature requests around it and so on. So we have to prioritize where we use our resources. So, but I'm not going to take the decision here. I'm just trying to say how I think about it.
Sure. Yeah, thank you.
I'm so
Peter,
glad you're here, Erik. Yeah, welcome, Peter. We're talking about metrics. You have feelings about metrics, right?
I came at the wrong time. I think I commented on Brian's issue with the cube state metrics thing just because I did it for something else. So it looks like you got that working, so that's awesome.
It's also the trend to kind of migrate to cube state metrics when you want to have metrics which is solely producible from an API resource. Like if the vertical pod autoscaler, I think they abandoned most of them, their API-based metrics, and is advising the users to use cube state metrics instead. So, of course, they produce metrics for things which are related to the operator or controllers, of course, but this is special kind of metrics which is more related to the API. So if I was to decide something, I would say use cube state metrics, just because I just onboarded as a maintainer and I can see that the project is suffering from a lack of resources. There's a lot of open PRs, a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that needs to be done, and we should probably prioritize a bit harder than we do. While still being fair to our users, of course. We will support the product.
Sorry, I know I've joined this late, but it's just the extra burden of more metrics and more things to look at is the concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More code, more features.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair. I think that's kind of a fair perspective from the maintainer side. I think from the user side, I think the concern would be, is it easy to, how easy or how is there kind of a paved path for getting those metrics out? So depending on kind of which way we decide, if we end up going down the cube state metrics route, then I would definitely, as a user, hope to be able to help contribute to adding docs for, here's how you go do this, here's how you get metrics for these things, right? And then
I was just about to say that I would really love if the community could contribute some good docs in this area. That would be super, and it would be very useful for other kind of metrics that users would like to have from cert-manager resources, or even from any resource. I mean, documentation is the thing that takes a lot of time to make it good.
Well, and to be to be honest, there are some docs over in the cube state metrics side, but it's those are maybe more abstract and not not as concrete of like here's how you go do that in your thing that you need, right?
Yeah, I would love to see
Yeah.
a section of the cert-manager docs with not a long story about
Sure.
CubeStat metrics, but with some links to CubeStat metrics docs and with an example on how you can do this, for example, with issuers and cluster issuers.
Sure.
That would be super.
Yeah.
Definitely, there would be support available if you wanted to commit anything like that, contribute anything like that. We these meetings or Slack, cert-manager dev on Kubernetes Slack, where you posted your original comment, Brian, like people would be very willing to help if you are able to share anything like that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So is that where we're leaning and where we're falling down on how we want to go about the issuer and cluster issuer metrics as cube state metrics?
From like with holding up my hands and saying, I'm maybe not the best person to comment on it, it does feel to me like that would be a preferable solution to
Cool.
adding something custom.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that case, I may I'll pull something together as far as like a docs proposal, and we can kind of hammer out where we want that, how we want that to look, sort of thing. But yeah, I'd definitely be happy to help contribute that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Super. Thanks.
Cool.
I'm smiling to myself because I'm imagining in a scenario where we have a Helm value to enable.
I wasn't going to say that, but
plus the issuer metrics, which deploys a dependent cube state metrics Helm chart with all the things I know Erik would absolutely love to see.
Oh,
yeah.
I think we have tutorial sections. That's a really good place for
yeah.
something.
You can just plunk down it's as far as the entire cube state, the entire custom state metric, the custom state metrics inside cube state metrics. That entire YAML's maybe 200 lines, right? So that's just a text file, for example. Here, go do this. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely worth having that on the website, either tutorials or DevOps tips or something. I think the context that we had from like metrics recently that this came up from was around certificate request metrics,
Right.
which are obviously a lot more. There's a lot more.
Yeah, there's a lot more numeral, a lot more of those. And I imagine it'd be the same for challenges and orders and all that. But
so I can certainly help review the cube state metric stuff. That's like that. I know about that area of things. I can't really help you review the code, but I would also say if you were to write the code for the metrics and it looked small and maintainable, maybe seeing what it looks like helps answer the question rather than kind of theoretically saying we don't want to have it. But I'm not a maintainer either, so.
Another perspective is that the issuer or cluster issuer, do they have any other characteristics which would be interesting to have a metrics on, or is it just ready or not ready?
You mean like a kind, or like what, like how they're being backed, whether they're
how they're
acting or
being
whatever?
used, for instance, how many certificates are using this issuer? You could pull that out from the certificate. So, well,
yeah.
You always have to consider what you're producing metrics for. I mean, our Prometheus servers are so overloaded with.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, I mean, if that's something that people are asking for, then maybe it kind of makes sense to, maybe that's kind of pushes things more in the direction of, well, maybe those should be brought in tree if we want to have those different things, right? But
that's why I'm asking the question, because then it would make more sense. Because when it comes to the ready or not state, I think if you can use metrics from Argo CD or Flux CD, that could work as good.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I think kind of the questions around like who's using what, and how many certificates you're using, which cluster issuers, which issuers, I think those are probably a lot more ad hoc things that people are just going to crank on kubectl.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this makes sense. And yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for opening the floor for that.
That's really our pleasure. That's a fantastic conversation. Yeah, I'm really chuffed that you've joined, and thank you for joining after having asked the question on the issue 3 weeks ago and not getting a response. I
I was
appreciate that as well.
also a small note. I had a discussion in the kind of more abstract level with Tim the other day about the cert-manager project, and I think I can speak for him to say that he thinks that we should be better to say no at things when we think that's the best decision to the best way forward. I mean, we have to take everything into consideration when we do something. So
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I think it's very hard to say no to people because a lot of people
yeah,
who volunteer their time so freely, and you want to help them and solve problems, but there's definitely time constraints that we have, and we it would be no bad thing for us to be uh a little bit more forceful sometimes. Not in this case. This case, I'm not sure that's true at all. But like, there's definitely been some times where we've let things go for a bit longer than maybe they needed to.
we should be open, of course, and explain
Yeah.
why, and if there are simple workarounds or not very complicated workarounds, we should consider them also into the picture, like we did here.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like the solution of cube state metrics. I think I end up in like a distributed systems head space where I'm like, the thing that we do is operate on conditions and statuses and what have you, and like there's always the risk that we set the condition or status but then can't update the metric, and then like we'll never, there's no way we can ever fix that problem, kind of thing. So if we can keep our stuff minimal and just have the status updated and correct, then like the rest of it can fall out of that.
But for that problem, the collector is super, because that will kind of look
It's on
directly at
demand.
the API representation. So you don't have to register a metrics inside the registry server. Your metric is produced on the fly. So
Yeah.
Yep.
it's
The only
really
thing worse than not reporting your metrics is lying about your metrics.
yeah. That's true.
Fair play. I feel like we've come to a good endpoint on that discussion topic. I think I know where we're at. I would encourage you to review what I've written in the meeting notes, and I've not written much. Like if you feel there's more context, it would be useful there. I've tried to link to the Slack post you made, Brian, and basically any other context would be appreciated there. Assuming that top discussion topic is finished, then there's nothing else left on the agenda. Did anyone have anything they wanted to bring up now?
I have my cluster bundle. I'm wondering how we can get that to move forward.
What's the latest with that? Where's the...
I've written the design for it. It has been approved by you, but I haven't got any much feedback from the other maintainers or the community in general. So I'm just wondering whether I should drop it or should I try to push more on it?
If like, oh, it'd be very easy for me to say that you should push forward, given that I approved it, I guess. But I think it makes sense, and it's good to go from my perspective. If no one's coming up with a valid objection, like that says something. Like I can understand people not being like super excited about it because it's not like it's a rename in some ways, right? It's not like an exciting new feature in
No.
that regard. So that might be why you're not hearing much back on it. But if no, like I'd say lazy consensus is what we have used in the past here, right? If if you put a message into cert-manager dev and say, unless someone screams, we will proceed with this by next Friday, I think that's totally reasonable.
Okay. I can try that. I will at least I want to get the design merged because I invested some time in writing it. So even if it's never implemented, I would like it to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that.
But at the end of the line, there is some interesting features like being able to introduce a namespace scoped bundle. People would like to do that inside namespaces for applications to communicate securely among each other. And also someone uses Trust Manager just to convert to the what we now call additional formats.
Yeah, yeah,
Convert from PEM to JKS or PKCS12. So
I'm with you.
yeah.
Well, like I say, lazy consensus. I think we have documentation somewhere on that, like with a thing you can copy.
Yeah, I've been part of it, so I know we.
Here it is. I'll link it in chat just in case. Yeah, kick that off. I can't imagine anyone's gonna have any complaints about it, so we should just move forwards that way. I'm going to be starting a lazy consensus soon for the post-quantum crypto changes to the roadmap. We
Yeah.
can have two at the
It
same.
will also be a super opportunity to change small parts of our API eventually. So
Yep. I'm all for it. Like you care about it, you've put work into it. This is definitely not a situation where we should say no. This is a situation where we should full steam ahead.
thanks. I'm planning to support it so for the future. So
Yeah. Yeah, all good there.
mm.
Is I feel like that's a nice end for that topic as well. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up? Going once, going twice. Okay. In that case, I'll bring things to an end. 20 minutes ahead of schedule. Thank you all for joining here in person. To anyone watching this recording on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll increase our subscriber count from the 2 that it's probably on right now. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks very much, everyone.